Sometimes I feel we should use a teleprompter in the meetings.
Ruchika, are you there?
Yes, sir, starting.
Yeah, okay.
$100. That's good.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Peters once said, winners must learn change with the same enthusiasm and energy that we have resisted it in the past. And the change we are talking about today is environmental, social, and governance. Identifying, understanding, and managing risk are at the core of the insurance industry. All risk have various dimensions, but the environmental, social, and governance ESG profile of a risk is a dimension that has only recently found its way into risk analysis in the industrial insurance segment. The Indian insurance industry has a crucial role to play in understanding the challenges posed at us by ESG in pursuit of making the Indian insurance industry larger and more important part of the economy. The National Insurance Academy alumni have endeavored in organizing this webinar on the theme Ensuring and Insuring ESG, the need of the hour. This is our second alumni webinar, which will focus on impact of ESG on the insurers and other players in the insurance ecosystem, the role of insurers in promoting ESG through their role as institutional investors, new insurance covers for meeting ESG related reliability risk. On this occasion, I, Kabir Sukhani, a student of second year PGDM at National Insurance Academy, extend a very warm welcome to all our eminent speakers who are alumni of National Insurance Academy, officials from the industry, faculties and staff at NIA, and all my fellow students at NIA's postgraduate management program. Now, before we begin, I request Mr. G. Srinivasan, Director, National Insurance Academy, to present the welcome and inaugural address. Let me give a quick introduction of Sir. Sir has an illustrious career of about 4 decades in the general insurance industry, one of the most renowned personality in the industry. He has been the longest serving CMD among all public sector insurance organizations. Before joining NIA, he led the New India Assurance Company and also the United India Insurance Company as CMD, a recipient of the Personality of the Year Award by Asia Insurance Industry Awards, Singapore. Mr. Srinivasan has also led the New India Assurance Company's Trinidad and Tobago subsidiary at Port of Spain as Managing Director. With this brief introduction, I request Sir to kindly present the welcome and inaugural address.
Yeah, thank you, Kabir, for the nice introduction. First of all, let me extend a very hearty welcome to all the participants, all the speakers for this webinar. Let me also say good day to every one of you because the speakers are participating from different parts of the world. It really makes this as an international webinar. For my part, I'm joining from the western, part of US, and I see some of the speakers joining from many other parts of the world. Let me first start by congratulating all the alumni members of the National Insurance Academy. For the last 16 years, the program is being run by the Academy for doing a fantastic job in terms of providing leadership to the insurance and technology industry, not only in India, but also in many other parts of the world. The alumni have really done well and well respected in the industry and brought laurels to the Academy. So we at the Academy are extremely happy about you, happy about your performance, happy about your growth. And also, when we hear something good about you, wherever it is, we feel delighted and extremely happy about to see your prosperity and growth. So the webinars are being basically organized to, provide a forum for the alumni and also to bring the the knowledge and the kind of inputs the alumni can bring to the insurance industry. I'm sure the the audience for this webinar would be extremely benefited by the today's deliberations. Let me start by talking a little bit about the National Insurance Academy before I get into the subject as such. National Insurance Academy just celebrated its foundation day yesterday of having been in existence for last 41 years as an eminent institution in the field of insurance education, learning, research and consultancy. We have been training every year about 8,000 insurance professionals, both from India and abroad, in various facets of insurance, technology, risk management. We also have now moved into certification programs in a bigger way, and we have a lot of aspirations for this. We are starting our actuarial program, very shortly, the next 2 weeks. This is something the Academy has been thinking for many years, and this is now becoming a reality at this point of time. We are also moving into certification programs in the field of general insurance, in the field of life insurance, enterprise risk management, so that we understand that the industry is changing, the needs of the insurance professionals are changing, and we want the Academy to really to evolve itself to meet the required needs of the growing insurance industry in India at this point of time. We are also focusing a bit on research. So there are a couple of very important research projects the Academy is doing at this point of time. Hopefully, once these projects are completed, I think it will add a lot of value to the insurance industry. Now, coming to the theme of this seminar, that is ESG, ensuring and insuring ESG. It's a very timely and a very relevant topic. Today, ESG is being spoken about in a very big way by everyone, including the investors. Today, companies who are doing well on ESG are, respected well by the investors. The investors are willing to put in more money, give more value to those companies whose ESG ratings are good. So that way, there is a huge awareness about ESG at this point of time. So to understand what ESG is, E stands for environment, and S for social, and G for governance factors. When you talk of environment, today there's a huge awareness about the environment, the global warming, climate risk. We as an insurance industry are being impacted by climate risk. In India itself, today, we are facing cyclones both in the Arabian Sea as well as in Bay of Bengal. Every year there are at least 4 to 5 natural catastrophe events, there are flooding events. So climate risk has become very, very important at this point of time. So E basically stands for what the companies are doing their bit to protect the environment. How do they contribute to better use of natural resources? How do they contribute to reducing pollution or degradation of environment? I think the whole society, including the companies, have a lot to do to protect the environment. Talking about, yes, it's social. When we talk of social, how do you take care of the society, which actually enables companies to perform. Companies are not performing in a vacuum. They really use the social resources to make profits, to benefit their shareholders. The question is, how does the company take care of their employees, the society? So S becomes very, very important. Then G, of course, has been talked about even a few years earlier, which is governance, how a company is being managed. When we talk of governance, the question is it being governed well? Is it being run to take care of only the shareholders, or is it being run to take care of all the stakeholders? This is how a company is being looked at. So to put it in one word, ESG talks about sustainability as a very important theme. And I think it's very, very important today. Companies have to focus on ESG in a big way. We see regulators nudging companies to focus on ESG. Even there are ESG ratings which are being now talked about. disclosures, ESG disclosures are being talked about in the corporate world. And I'm seeing a day very shortly where even rating companies will use ESG as an important rating factor when they rate companies, whether S&P or AM Best. They may even talk of ESG as an important aspect of rating a company. So what applies to a company applies to insurance companies as well. So insurance companies need to take care of ESG in a very significant way. But there are a couple of areas where I feel insurers can contribute a little more as compared to other companies. One is, this is something we are seeing all over the world. Can the insurance industry really, act as a deterrent to those industries which use fossil fuels by saying we will not insure them? I mean, this is something, we are seeing insurers and reinsurers across the world doing. They are saying that we will not insure those companies which are spoiling the environment. So that's one area where we really have to look at it. This is not an easy decision, a difficult decision for countries like India, where these kind of industries are quite, very much there. And we as a country are also saying that we need them for some more time. So that's one. The second area is, as an investor, insurance companies are big investors. We provide long-term funds to the industry. So can we encourage those industries who are, promoting ESG? Can we reduce our investments in those companies which are kind of, they are not in favor of environment protection? So this is yet another area whereby the insurance industry can really contribute towards better ESG. So these are some of the questions which I thought I will pose. And I'm sure the eminent speakers who are here will deliberate, come out with a lot of useful points. Once again, I welcome all of you, and I thank the speakers for taking their time off and being part of this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the warm welcome and inaugurating the discussion, sir. It is always a privilege to listen to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now begin with the panel discussion. The discussion will be moderated by Ms. Priyanka Gautama, Vice President, Commercial Underwriting and Claims in Liability Lines from SDFC Ergo General Insurance Company. Experts in the panel are Mr. Ayandev Saha, Strategic Advisor, Financial Sector, Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, Republic of Rwanda. Mr. Puranjay Parchure, Pricing and Reinsurance Actuary, NHBC, England. Mr. Aditya Khanna, Senior Vice President from Marsh JLT Specialty Energy and Power Practice, London. Mr. Akash Ketarpal, Manager Reinsurance, Marsh India Insurance Brokers. We are delighted and privileged to have our esteemed alumni for the panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, due to some exigency, Mr. Ayandev Saha couldn't join us for the live event, but he has sent a pre-recorded video for the discussion. Now I request moderator Ms. Priyanka Gautama to kindly commence the discussion. All the panel members are requested to keep their cameras on during the deliberation. At the end of it, the moderator may also take up some questions from the audience. So the audience may type their questions in the Q&A section. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kabir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Director Sir, for such a detailed introduction of the topic, and it's very kind of you to really give us this opportunity and platform to all of us as alumni to really share knowledge in the industry and really come together as an event. This topic is a very relevant topic, like we say, environmental. So ESG is really environment, social governance, and something which is very, very relevant to today's times. This, while it's a new topic that we are talking about, it's been there for very long. For years, it's been in the form of social governance that we talk about, or corporate governance that we've been talking about in the corporate world. But ESG is having a far larger impact from the economy and the growth perspective that we are looking at, and a sustainable environment that we're looking at. The pandemic, COVID-19, has seen a lot of impact in the way people have changed their vision and how they want to function. And ESG has definitely been one very important part of the factor that looks at how we want to be more resilient as organizations, or corporates want to really be more resilient from their business perspective. Since now I would like to really take you through each one of our panelists. What we have as a process is that we've got each of our panelists going to speak individually, and then eventually we'll have question answer for you. Someone who's going first for us is the youngest of the alumni group right now. He's going to be Akash, who's going to be speaking. And he's really talking about very practical aspects in our day-to-day life from the with respect to ECG and its relevance to the insurance industry. So over to you, Akash, without wasting any more time, and looking forward to hearing you.
For considering me youngest. I would start first by thanking everyone who is there, who took out their time to be a part of the webinar. I know it's a Saturday. Director sir, thank you so much for giving us such an impactful start. My student, alumni, seniors, members, students of NIA, they are the heart and soul of everything here. So how do we begin? I think ESG is something which is coming here. It's a new thing which is being discussed every forum, everywhere. It was new for me as well, and I would say I got to interact with a lot of people and understood this with the much I could. So have you heard about the CSR? The CSR is the very common thing which is in the organizations, and somewhere it started with that, how organizations would be made responsible to address things in the world, or as we say that it's like a corporate citizen. Like if I tell you that don't throw waste somewhere or do something, similarly the organizations are equally responsible. So at the simplest, ESG provides an umbrella framework to consider a company's impact and the dependencies on the environment and society as a whole, and as well as the quality of corporate governance, which is a much deeper aspect, but which is being discussed. So now we have brought all three into sync as ESG, the environmental, social, and the governance platform. So I'll talk a bit about the environmental. Everyone has heard about that BP disaster leading around 5 million barrel oil into the ocean. They lost billions of dollar claims and everything. How it happened? Because now the organizations have come to address that, yes, people are held responsible, but the organization as a whole should also be held responsible. So environmental aspect I'll talk about first would generally include carbon emissions, impact on deforestation, nature loss, or the non-renewable. And as Director Sir said about all the fossil fuels, etc. So these have an environmental impact. Production of waste, yes. So all the organizations and insurers are coming with the green finance initiatives, which is a new thing we'll discuss. Social is the contribution of a company to the fairness in the society. And when I talk about the fairness in the society, yes, an organization which is involved in some human right violation or something is not considered good, and you would not vouch for it. Similarly, it includes the product safety. The recent things about the data privacy. What if I give my data to an organization and it gets leaked? It's the responsibility. It's a social responsibility of the organization to take care of my data, of my privacy. So the social aspect has been broadened over the decades. Governance, yes, the process of decision making. How the board members or the people in the senior management decide, how independent oversight is being seen. We can also bring some amount of whistleblower policies or ethical behaviors into that. So the basic at the outright companies, however, the jargon it sound, companies cannot ignore ESG. And if I feel personally that if the intent is right, things will happen. A lot of companies, you talk about Tata's, Amul's, these guys are following these practices, not maybe in a very great framework, they might develop it later, but yes, the heart of the intent is always there. I will discuss an example which might not fit in the webinar, or which might not relate with ESG, but it will just tell you how, in layman terms, or how I understood that a sustainable organization works. So have you heard about Sarla Devi, Lijjat Papad? I still find that bunny creepy, but still, it's the legit Papad ad that used to come. It was started in around 1960s or 1950s, I don't remember, by 7 women. The pattern of ownership is co-owners. Now it has 45,000 women working. And we are talking about 1960s, where I think the patriarchy or the society was not ready much for the women working. Now it's still better. So it's an organization which has given livelihood to people. The social aspect, it has turned out very well. Governance, I would say it has a co-owner model. So no, there's no one person governing the whole organization. Environmental, yes, it has the least environmental impact. It implemented work from home like years back. So I would just giving this example, the meant was not to make it a formal discussion, but to let you know that yes, these are the things that are there in our society, and somewhere a lot of big organizations have learned how this co-owner model or different models are working. Now I would come on the favorite, because we are in the insurance industry, insurance and ESG. So as directors very rightly said, and that's what insurers have started, that insurers should act as a deterrent. And frankly, tell me or tell the panel that how long we can continue. It's just gone out of our hands. The fossil fuels, we see the environment of our big cities, the mega cities, which we so call. Everywhere, they are not livable. They are not becoming livable anymore. So why it is there? And it's not you see you have seen a lot of documentaries on sea pollution or whatever. So insurers are basically the enablers. So acting as a deterrent, yes. Would you actually go for a risk which is uninsured, or would you set up a company where no one gives any insurance? No. So these days I'm in the reinsurance space, and we are hearing that no power plants. Some insurers have taken a stand. However profitable they may be, whatever rate you give them, they will not write a coal power plant, a new coal power plant maybe. So they are taking it because this is the way. If no one gets an insurance, the new power plants won't come up. And renewable, for example, banks, what they did, they subsidized some of the renewable energy establishments. And yes, this acts as an enabler for them. Similarly, insurance can play a greater role. So, and for insurance companies and insurance brokers, they also, when the risk changes, for example, we are going from the regular vehicles to electric vehicles, they also have to dive into the technology. They have to understand everything. So in the insurance context, I think there are three things apart from regulation. I'll not discuss that here. So it is investments, business excellence, and underwriting. So investment, especially life insurance and other investment, is one of very important thing that comes into play when insurance is there. So because insurance companies park their money somewhere. So now the insurance company have the owners to see those companies where they put their money in. So for example, a big life insurer puts money into a company which follows an ESG practice. It will have more sustainable future and better results. So talking about business operations, if the companies become ESG observant, and ESG, not everything will just boil down to maybe environment or governance. Social aspect, how much you are making consumers, your operations consumer friendly, how less e-waste you are generating, how your structure promotes autonomy, how decentralized is your structure. So all this would come into business operations. So underwriting, I would say, there's as Sir rightly said, and there's a shift in the priorities of insurance firms. Insurers are brokers are actively pursuing environmental and social benefits in terms of the products they sell. In the terms of, I would say, like solar is very popular, parametric is very popular, getting very popular. Why? Because now insurance companies are choosing what they want to underwrite. No, if a company takes a stand that if there's some human right violation or something which is unethical that is going on a company, we won't write that risk, and that's perfectly fine. So we are just going on a sustainable model, and I will just sum up by saying something that this is the new thing, new as in the way the perspective has changed a lot, and I think if as individuals also we see in our day-to-day work how we implement it, this will definitely add values to our clients. In Marsh, we have been following it a lot, and we have been talking to our clients to as we have been talking as risk managers to how we can address their energy needs or whatever ESG needs they have. I'll give you just last simple example. Therefore, Mr. Nitin Mehta in Marsh heads the Pune branch. What he did was very interesting. When he was the head, he took, obviously we have brokers, we have to give some Diwali gifts. So he collaborated with an organization which is run a gift making company which is run by visually impaired, and then we gifted the same gifts to our clients. So how thoughtful it is that you are making an impact by serving the livelihood, helping people with the livelihood, and you are also making an impact by sending a message to the society that yes, the core value of our company is that we'll support, we are enablers in this whole ecosystem. So thank you. That's my time, and really happy to be here. So I think that's all from my side, and we'll discuss as the panel discussion more eminent speakers ahead. So stay tuned. So we'll discuss more. Thanks, Priyanka. Over to you.
Thanks, Akash. This was very informative. I think I love the way Akash put his examples, very simple, lame and our daily life examples in explaining this topic. I think when we all started working on this topic, we realized it's different, it's complex. But how one of the speakers has put it in a very simple way in how we implement it in our daily life, and that really is the essence of the topic. It is a part of our everyday life. As an insurance industry, we from the underwriting, from the risk management, from investment aspects, we are very much being implemented or impacted by the ESG change that is taking place in today's business and economic environment, and that's something that we all have to live with. One aspect that also comes to my mind, when I hear Akash, is the aspect that I think all of us in our organization, there's a lot of more, like he said, environmental protection or the social aspect where they're using, visual impaired people to, probably give gifts. I see a lot of diversity and inclusion happening in the industry. A lot of those aspects really getting implemented. So the ESG implementation within the organizations today is also there in a big way. How you get in more women, or how you use gifts from or hire people. So I think all these aspects are definitely here to stay and part of our everyday lives. Thanks. Very nice session. Very nice presentation from your side, Akash. Now I would like to move on to our second speaker. Puranjay is here, and he's really going to be, getting into a little detail aspect of the risk modeling aspect with respect to ESG, and how today actuarials are really, how's the actuary team really working to deal with the new age risks that are coming up. So I think, again, a very interesting topic. Over to you, Puranjay. Looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you, Priyanka. I'll share my slides first and then kick off. But let me know once you can see them, really. Yeah, hopefully you can see them now, but let me know if not. Yeah, no, thank you, Priyanka, and good morning to everyone, and thank you for having me here as one of the speakers. Again, as Akash said, I really liked the opening remarks by Director Sir, because that sort of set the scene for the whole session, really, which was really good. And thank you, Akash, for putting your thoughts across with full of energy and really useful points. So yeah, I'm going to start my topic now. What I've done is I've taken the liberty of rearranging today's topic. So Kabir at the beginnings said, we're talking about three things: the impact of ESG, promoting ESG through role as market players, and providing ESG related covers. So for me, the impact of ESG, in my opinion at least, like sits sort of at the top of the system, and then it branches out into promoting ESG and then providing ESG related covers. So the promoting ESG part, which is the ensuring part of for me, is where, I mean, Akash touched upon this brilliantly. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but it's where, the insurance companies have their own peoples and processes, and they impact on the way business is carried out, whether it's board level, strategy level, and then on the other side, there's obviously reporting around this and audit and scrutiny. Uh, from an actuarial perspective, all of this possibly, like, for people who have heard about the Solvency II types of risk, business risk, liquidity risk, credit risk, and so on and so forth. So from an actuarial modeling perspective, the challenge for this is that it comes through, probably an operational risk or a reputation risk kind of forum. And maybe you could have new types of risk categories in the future, but for now, it possibly comes through that. And then the second part is the insuring ESG part, which is where now insurance companies are actually providing ESG related covers. And this is the bit I'm going to concentrate on for the next two slides. Yeah, and this is where there are new types of cover which can be given, and I think again the director sir and Akash touched upon this, but this new types of cover, it could be a new client or a new market. So a client which possibly does not focus on fossil fuels but focuses on something else, or it might be the same client but with new needs. So your clients now might be engaging more with ethical investment practices, and these are the ones that you want to concentrate on. So what it does from an actuarial point of view, it throws up really interesting challenges, and which is what I'm going to touch upon in the next couple of slides. So I've come up with an example here. As part of the ESG, or as part of the social bit of the ESG. So it's important for organizations to possibly take care of the mental health of their employees. So you could be faced with a new cover, a new health cover, for example, which uh, uh, yeah, which takes care of the mental health of the employees. Any negative impact on the mental health of your employees as a result of a negligent act on part of the directors officers. So what it does is, when you have a new cover like this, immediately your mind goes through a lot of potential challenges that you might see when you're coming to modeling this. Actually, so first of the challenges is, okay, you set up a new cover. What is the competition going to do? Are they going to, how are they going to set premiums? Do you have the data for modeling this? Do we have the data for reporting this? If we do launch this cover, will we generate enough business volumes? And what the strain on and the cost on capital might be? If it's again a new cover, how do you report it into your accountings? Do you have to make a new disclosure statement? Do you have to give an extra director's note? Then again, reinsurance market capacity. You've got a new cover. You want to protect it against even bigger risks. So, is there enough capacity in the reinsurance market to do that? What is the rate that they're going to charge you? So all of these, I mean, I don't mean to pose this as problems, but I mean to pose this as challenges. But as an actuary, it's my job to think about everything that can go bad, unfortunately. But that's what I'm trying to put on this slide. I've put a concept called black, gray, and white swan at the bottom, and these are just how conceivable or inconceivable this risk are. Like whether they're like right out there, where it may never happen, or whether like a pandemic, like nobody thought about it, but it was just there, and it was pretty conceivable if we turned and thought about it. But some of them are so inconceivable that they're just out of the horizon. So all of these things are challenges that an insurance company wants to think about when it is providing new ESG related covers. I missed out a few things on this slide because there was no more space. Most importantly, possibly, challenges with the policy wordings and terms and conditions when you're providing a new cover or an add-on to an existing cover. So So from the challenges, then I will move on to who can really help overcome these challenges. And this is these are partly my thoughts, but this is also something that is taking place in practice, really. So who can help? The answer is like everyone, really. It's I mean it's up to all of us. I mean, we are in the insurance company or in the reinsurance companies, but we are part of the insurance ecosystem, and it's up to all of us to possibly get help from the regulator, government, the judiciary, legal system, or have a panel of providers and intermediaries, or actual working parties, accounting standard boards. And how can they help? They can help with horizon scanning, for example. So I spoke about risks which are inconceivable. So if all of these people sit together and say, okay, these are the 100 types of risk that we might face because of new ESG related covers, and only 5 types are probably conceivable and 95 are not, something like that. The other way they can help is to classify these risks. If they're conceivable, they might happen in the next 5 years, next 10 years, and how big the event might be. Then they can help to set the tolerance. So, an industry, for example, can come together and say, okay, these types of risks we can tolerate to, I don't know, $5 billion, and that's what the industry capacity is now. Or they can set, or through the courts or the legal system, they can set limits on liability or set typical indemnity amounts, so that you know what you're working towards when you come your risk modeling. Or they can prescribe, stress or scenario tests, where the providers of any new ESG related covers go through a prescribed level of scenario testing before they can actually bring it to market. So that is how we can seek help. And I think it's, and I mean, and I feel quite strongly about this. This is to be a joint exercise. It cannot be an exercise done in isolation, at a company level or a broker level. It's something where the insurance industry, along with the regulators, the government, and the judiciary, all come together to try and solve some of the challenges around here. I'll briefly touch upon current approaches that insurance companies, I think, to some extent, are already doing. Some of the non-financial or non-mathematical approaches is just keeping an eye out and updating and monitoring your risk register. It's just like identifying the risks in advance, making sure that you have those on paper, and making sure you're discussing them around at the board level and the executive level as well. Then responding to any regulatory or industry requirements. So we've had it in the London market over the past year and a half, because of the coronavirus pandemic, that regulators have come and asked you that do you have a good measure of exposure of all the risks that you face, and can you go back and look at all your policies and see that you've actually got enough wording around it to cover any claims or not. So it's something. So insurance companies are responding to regulators on new ESG related questions. The other is of catastrophe modeling. I mean, companies have been using catastrophe modeling in the past, but those are primarily around climate-related risks. But ESG, as we know, is much wider than climate-related risks. And companies are now using CAT models, which have non-natural CAT modeling kind of risk and into their own models. Next is scenario testing, impact on balance sheets. Obviously, you want to see if a new risk takes place, what is the financial impact, how it's going to affect your balance sheet in the future, and then what are you supposed to do now to take care of those new risks. And obviously, to be discussed at board and executive risk levels. And the last bit is probably a bit technical, but basically ENID means events not in data. So these are events which have never taken place before. Coronavirus pandemic, again, being a classic example. And if they're not in your data, you can't really use your data to model the future. So making sure that all these risks somehow feed into your models, even they're not in your past data, but then having some scenarios around it to try and model it. So these are kind of the things I wanted to touch upon really with my opening remarks. So I will thank you for your time, and I'll hand it over back to Priyanka, I guess. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Priyanka, let me just stop sharing my screen. Yeah, hopefully that's gone away. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Puranjay. Very, very informative, presentation and points shared by you. I completely agree. With the new age covers and the new innovative coverages and risks that we're seeing. I definitely understand the challenges that as an actuary, where it's all about data and really modeling basis the risk, and if the information is not available to that extent that you require, it's quite a big challenge for an insurance company also to really come up with insurance solutions and pricing them rightly, giving the right coverages, checking how the capital is the capital deployed correctly for that cover. So completely relate and understand to what you're saying. I also agree that with the pandemic, all of us had so many board questions where board wanted to really check, or the regulator really wanted to check our aspects of seeing whether we really are had enough how's the exposure been from some of these new risks that have come up. They're all part of the environmental changes that's happening, or the change. I mean, some scenario like COVID-19 has happened once in 100 years. I mean, a lot of us really couldn't measure the impact that it could cause on the different businesses. While we all thought it would be only related to, say, the health industry, or probably related to, but I mean, today it's across industries, across different, businesses have got impacted by it. And I don't think this as one of the risk factors was also really measured when we were all pricing our risk, or when we were really looking at how it would impact us. So definitely understand this, and I think I also completely agree with you that there's a lot of collaborative work that needs to be done across different industries, or different like regulators and boards together to make this more successful in providing solutions to the market. Completely agree with you. I mean, I was just thinking about how the solar storm is something that came up, and a lot of us really didn't know how. That's another impact that we're seeing. These are the new age scenarios that we're seeing. So thank you. Very, very informative session from your side. Over to the next speaker. This is again a very interesting session. The focus here from Aditya is really going to be on the E, which is the environmental aspect of the environment, social governance that we're talking about. And he's really going to be talking to us about how the impact, especially, is to the energy and the power sector. So without wasting time, over to you, Aditya. Looking forward to hearing you.
Thanks, Priyanka. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm going to try and share content. Can you see my screen? Good. Thanks a lot, Priyanka. Thanks for your views, and thanks a lot to Akash and Puranjay and Director Sir for giving me the opportunity to speak after them. And thanks a lot to everyone from the NI community and outside. I think my previous panel members have spoken about ESG. Akash really did a wonderful job about giving us an overview. Puranjay then went into from a slightly capital-based side in terms of how insurance companies are looking at it. I thought I'll go slightly different, and I'll just focus on the E out of the ESG. And especially as an insurance industry, I've always felt that our industry acts as an enabler. So not only it's about our internal ESG of insurance companies, but also the ESG aspect of our customers. So I'm going to be talking about, my theme is going to be about three things. How is ESG, or the E environment, is impacting the insurance industry? It's quite important to us because ultimately if the environment changes and there are more cat losses and natural catastrophes, it impacts us because it impacts our daily business. Then I'm going to do a case study on energy and power sector. Obviously, I work in the energy and power insurance industry, so it's a good link in, and I'm going to slightly dwell deeper on how the insurance industry is supporting that sector. And then I'm going to ask a few questions. I'll probably put it out to the audience, give some weird ideas about what future holds for us. I mean, it might be a good idea to just check and see how do we think about it. So I think all my panel members and directors have spoken about the impact of ESG on the insurance companies and how the environment is getting affected, and there's global warming, which clearly is manifesting into major losses. So if you look at the graph on the right hand side, it's done by Swiss Re. They're capturing the insured losses since 1970. As you can see, there's a clear trend towards an increasing amount of years where the losses are going probably close to $100 billion. 2021 was the fourth highest on record. So there's a clear trend. So no one can deny that. I think our panel members also spoke about it. But actually closer home also in India, over the last 12, 13 years, we have seen there's an increase in the cyclones and floods which are occurring. I think Director Sir spoke, not only the cyclones are hitting the East Coast, which used to be the traditional place where you used to be exposed to cyclones. One has also seen cyclones on the West Coast of India now, which was less common, but we are seeing more often. So I think there is no denying the fact that ESG is important to us as an insurance industry, purely because it impacts our business. So now how can we deal with it? We can't. So effectively, I've always seen insurance industry as an enabler. So I'm going to talk about energy and power sector. So slightly deep diving into the aspect on what role can an insurance industry play. And so I'm going to map what the sector is doing, and then I'm going to map what the insurance industry is, how we are trying to respond. One of the most important aspects, and I think a couple of our panel members spoke about fossil fuels and how they are contributing towards the global warming and changing climate. One of the aspects which we all have to think about, that in the current state, as we sit in 2021, certainly after post-pandemic, the gas prices has gone up. So, and why is that? One of the reasons is that there has not been enough investment into the traditional sources of energy over the last few years, because there's been a huge diversion of funds towards the renewable or more sustainable sources of energy. What we have to keep in mind is that in this journey where we go from more carbon intensive sources to less carbon intensive sources of energy, this is going to take time. An entire world economy has to shift huge dependence on coal, fossil fuels like oil, probably natural gas to an extent, to completely cleaner sources of energy. So I think as an energy industry, the sector is trying to maintain the existing resources, maintain the fields, maintain the supply channels, because let's not forget, energy is quite important for all economies, but especially for lesser developed economies, because it's cheaper, it's probably more accessible, and it allows countries to come up in their development indexes. So I think one of the things which the power sector and energy sector is doing is, while they're using the existing infrastructure to fund into the transition phase, obviously there is a huge amount of interest in the investment into the renewable space. For example, 70% of new power generation in 2021 was directed towards renewables, roughly $370 billion. So there is no denying the fact that there's a clear shift, which the underlying sector, which as an insurance industry we serve, is doing towards renewable sources. Now, where do we come in as an insurance industry? So there are two roads to it. One, we have to support the existing infrastructure until we are in a position to completely get out of the carbon intensive sources. So for example, Akash spoke about the challenges which probably traditional sources of energy, for example, coal, are facing to get insurance covers. Now I think this is my personal opinion. There has to be a bit of balance. We have to understand the ground realities of countries, nations. For example, there are two countries which are extremely dependent on coal as power source. One is South Africa and one is India. Roughly 70 to 75% of our energy source demand is met through coal. And there's a huge amount of people in the, which are associated with this industry who are dependent on this industry. Until we have the ability to transform their lives, provide them. So when we are talking about ESG, we also have to think about the social part of it. So we have to look out for the communities which are involved. So for example, in India, the coal mining belt, that supports a huge amount of community. Now that is also an aspect which we have to keep in mind, because that's also part of the social fabric of ESG. So I think from my perspective, the insurance industry, what the role which we have to play is we have to keep an eye on the future, but also look at the present and understand. And that's probably what we are doing right now. We also have to keep an eye out for the new technologies, for example. So obviously there are two ways to think about the carbon intensity in the world. One is to reduce it. So how can you reduce it? So there's a huge amount of push in the world about developing technologies to capture hydrogen as a source. Now there's various ways in which you can capture hydrogen, existing processes, probably new processes. I won't go there too much into detail, but I just wanted to highlight the extent of investment which is going in. So $500 billion until 2030. So clearly the world has caught on to this idea that we need some new sources of energy which are less or going to be zero carbon intensive, and then try and push them. But there's another part of it. There is existing carbon in our atmosphere. How do we deal with that? So obviously carbon capture and storage is something which is coming up. And as an insurance industry, we have to put our arms around, and we are actually, we are trying to adapt ourselves. So because ESG impacts us, the environment impacts us, we have to put our arms around these newer technologies, probably newer risk profiles, probably something which we may or may not have got enough data or analytics, or probably something which is going to challenge Puranjay. And I can't see him right now, but he might be smiling. But that's the challenge which the market is going to throw to the energy and power sector is going to throw to us. They want us in our pursuit for new sources of energy. As an insurance industry, we have to put our arms around the sector. Now, so what is insurance industry doing? Obviously, we have to enable an orderly energy transition. We have to support the transition going from high carbon intensive to low carbon intensive. How does it help the ESG? Well, it helps the social part of it, because we can't just walk away from millions of people who are dependent on the traditional sources of energy. What are the market initiatives? I think Puranjay spoke very well about the need for the regulators, the market associations. It is quite hard for individual companies to take a stance. They do take a stance, but in order to actually have an impact across the sector, we need the entire stakeholder communities, including communities, for example. They need to be part of the decision making. So I think in this case, insurance industry, the market, at least I can speak from a London market perspective, there's a very clear cut understanding and appreciation that ESG is an important aspect. Does it impact on a day-to-day basis right now? Probably not, but it is getting to a stage where if we keep constantly talking about this, having webinars, and I must say thank an eye for it, it'll become a part of our muscle memory. It'll become part of the jargon. It'll become part of the day-to-day life of ours. And I think that is becoming more and more common. And also, obviously, I spoke about newer technologies, but we are also having new risk profiles, for example, offshore wind. Now, this is something, a sector which is relatively focused towards Western Europe or European countries and probably North America. But I think it is giving a challenge to the market. So there's huge amount of investment in it. There are certainly more challenges, less number of players and experience or data to support it. But the market is trying to come up with solutions, trying to come up with the right wordings, probably have the loss adjusters who understand these risk profiles and are able to support the industry as they go in their journey. Floating LNG is quite an interesting example. when we say LNG, it's basically capturing the gas and liquefying them. There's a ship which I have. It's one of the largest liquefaction or LNG ships in the world. Now, as a market, as an insurance industry, we have been able to put our arms around on something which was first in the world, one of the world's largest, multi-billion dollars, and is probably much better for the environment because it's being built in a yard, then put on a ship. So it does not disturb communities, it does not disturb anyone. It's right at the source, and probably it's using gas. Therefore, it is less carbon intensive than probably coal or, for example, crude oil. So I think I hope that you get a sense that even though ESG is extremely important to us, we have a role right from the traditional sources, and we have to walk our way. This is a 30-40 year journey. This is not going to happen overnight. And I think we, as an insurance industry, we have a role and we are doing good job. Maybe we can do it better, but I think it's going there. So I'm just going to go for a crystal ball. So I think a lot of us spoke about ESG, but what do we do about it? How do we judge people as an insurance industry? Do we have an ESG scorecard? On what basis are we going to judge? So for example, if someone is having solar panel on top of their houses, will the insurance industry give them a credit or give them a discount, for example, for having a sustainable source of energy? Maybe, maybe not. That is something which the insurance industry as a group of individuals or specialists, we have to come out on what is the right thing. Because you can have an extremely big, large corporation like XYZ and relatively smaller organizations. How you're going to ensure that you are fair to both the organizations in the same manner? Obviously, with the same thread in mind, what about the risk assessment philosophy? Are we going to start judging? So how do we actually underwrite a risk based on ESG? So if they are carbon intensive industry, do we give them tighter coverages, bigger retentions, smaller limits, lesser capacity? That is something which we need to think about as an industry. I just wanted to share, I mean, this is something probably not really as part of the presentation, but I thought it's an interesting thing which we think about. When we think about power, we always think about large thermal or combined cycle power plants producing energy or producing power. So over here, I have put a picture of a building in London. And I'll put my hand up. I had not known about this until I was involved for this seminar. So if you look closely, I've got a closer picture as well. It has got solar panels. So the building produces electricity for itself. Is that the future we are going to go for? That every building or every establishment produces their own electricity using variety of sources, and we don't really need these huge power plants to produce electricity for us. That's something which I'm hoping actually to give it back to the audience and ask them, what are the other things which you think can come out of all this increasing focus on ESG? I think my time is up. I'll give it back to Priyanka. I hope you found it interesting. And other panel members?
Thank you, Aditya. It's just given a very, very different perspective to this discussion. I think we were all looking at the future aspects of ESG and seeing how we need to really develop, and move forward from the environment and social and governance aspects. But I love the way Aditya's put across that, there are industries that really, the change has to be a gradual change. It's not something that you can do just in one day. You have to really look at the existing industries that are getting impacted with this new age changes that we're prospecting, and we need to work because there's a lot of people already working in the industry, and that you really need to also take care of, and that's also a social responsibility that we all have. So and also from the insurance industry aspect, we need to also really take care of while we're looking at developing insurances for the new age, we also need to look at how we can protect the interest of these existing industries as well. So it's really not only looking at the future, but also what's at the present. So a very different perspective to the same discussion. I think that's the advantage of having people from different fields. You get so many different thoughts across. I also like the way he said, we're all talking about ESG. I'm so sorry, I've been saying that, ESG, and how do we bring this into our underwriting aspects as well? Today you have, we're talking about this, but we really want to give customers really the benefit in terms of pricing, or maybe coverages aspect, and something that I link today, because I'm a liability underwriter, is today when I underwrite cyber insurance, a few years back when we were all underwriting cyber insurance, the IT security aspect was not given the same relevance than what it is given today. Today we look at from a client's perspective that you need to really have a good IT security posture. So similarly, I think like you're saying, if you are into following these good standards, ESG standards, then bring this aspect as questions in your underwriting, and also give the benefit to the customer. And I'm sure this is really a very interesting thought, for all of us from the insurance industry, and how we can start speaking about it, discussing it, and also implementing it in our underwriting. I would also request the attendees that if you could start, sending on your questions, so that when in the end, when we have a discussion, we can always take some of your questions from the panelist. We have one last session. The speaker is not present here, but he's really sent a very, very informative recorded message for all of us. He's really talking about ESG and its alignment with the SDGs, and I mean, something that is very, very different, sustainable development goal. It's again giving a very different perspective to ESG. So, and also how it is going to impact the growth of the economy. So I would just request the ID team to play the video, and request the attendees, please share some questions in the chat box.
A very good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. It's indeed my pleasure to share my thoughts on ESG this morning. Let me start from the year 2015, the year the United Nations set out to solve the world's major economic, social, and environmental challenges in the 17 critical areas by 2030. All the 193 member states agreed to the Agenda 2030, calling on all businesses to actively and creatively be part of the solutions. While some of the goals directly fall under the government's responsibility, the UN expects organizations and corporations, irrespective of size, large, medium, and small, to take impactful steps towards achieving the success. It goes without saying, the COVID-19 pandemic in the recent times has led to a dramatic loss of human life worldwide and presents an unprecedented challenge to public health, food systems, and the world of work. The economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic is devastating. As a result of COVID-19 crisis, the gap to achieving a number of the SDGs, including the most important SDG, SDG 1, on poverty, is increasing again. The COVID-19 crisis threatens to set back decades of progress made towards the development across the countries. This crisis magnified through declining resources and increasing need. Though we all understand the reasons, the very reasons for declining resources, let me emphasize more on the increasing needs. COVID-19 crisis climate-related disasters and famine are hitting the most vulnerable and worsening the gender gap. It is expected that the poverty will rise for the first time since 1998, with about 100 million people expected to push into extreme poverty, and at least twice as many into poverty, and with hundreds of millions of job loss. Inequality is rising across many groups as they are disproportionately affected. For example, people from the low and middle income countries today are 7 times more likely to die from natural disasters, and the financial burden associated with the rising debt level in those climate vulnerable countries are expected to double over the next decade. The COVID-19 crisis provides a stark wake-up call to the importance of aligning our economies to the SDGs and the Paris Agreement for building resilience. SDG alignment unlocks the resources, direct them towards the need, and build a more sustainable and inclusive economy, which protects against the risk, build resilience, and generates financial return and economic growth. The case for the alignment has never been this stronger. According to me, there is no better time than now to focus on the sustainability in our recovery from pandemic. To do this, we can harness the power of finance. We can harness the power of innovation and technology to drive the transformation in all sectors of the society and improve our lives. Today, while environmental, social, and corporate governance, the so-called ESG framework, is more popular among investors, financial institutions, however, I believe the framework does not fully reflect the SDG alignment. SDG alignment is both a means to mobilize the resources for the implementation of the 2030 agenda and a value proposition for the private sector to preserve the long-term value of their assets by doing no harm and contributing solutions to the sustainable development challenges, thereby reducing the risk and enhancing the resilience of the global financial system. This double materiality, financial and non-financial, of the SDG alignment agenda relies on achieving the 2 broad objectives. The first and the most important objective is equality. Resources should be mobilized to leave no one behind and fill the SDG financing gap. And the second objective is by the name itself, the sustainability. Resources should accelerate progress across the SDGs. Yet, beyond creating a net positive impact over the life of the investment, our ambition should also be to aim that the investment does not harm or does no harm across the SDGs. Why am I saying so? There are companies today, without naming them, get high ESG scores from the biggest rating agencies and firms. They are also typically among the largest holding for ESG firms, largely because they rank high on parameters such as corporate governance and greenhouse gas emissions. However, their core businesses involve the manufacturing and marketing of addictive products that are a major cause of diabetes, obesity, and early mortality. By connecting the SDGs to the current ESG measures, companies and investors can establish a common vocabulary or a language for business decision-making and investment strategies. Furthermore, the SDGs will allow businesses to consider financially significant regulatory, operational, and ethical problems related to the goals, which strengthens the existing ESG framework. Companies may be more motivated today to pay attention to the financial and non-financial concerns such as corporate governance, direct and indirect environment footprint, and human rights issues if they use the investing strategies that considers both SDGs as well as ESG issues. In simple terms, for me, the SDGs are the why and the ESGs is the how. ESG factors can be roughly translated into SDGs on the corporate level, as a unique part of the ESG considerations can be assigned to all the 17 goals. Business can utilize multiple strategies to align with the SDGs, including assessing, mapping, and setting goals, strategic integration and collaboration and reporting and communication. The SDGs provide with a wide range of chance for businesses to make a difference with 169 specific aims. I'm sure every one of us knows in this room which aims I'm talking about. Ultimately, organizations and investors who proactively focus on the SDG Agenda 2030 are likely to improve their ESG score and uncover the new growth and the development opportunities. I would like to conclude by going back to our larger purpose, why this is important and why are we having the ESG event this morning. Across the globe, more and more people are paying close attention to the climate change and its impact. Climate change is the ultimate challenge for the humankind and has become a rallying cry to inspire people to take collective action for the common good of our planet. As a matter of priority, it is necessary today to raise awareness on a national level on the message that environment protection is everybody's business. A shared purpose in this mission is to emerge as a part and parcel of a national development vision. Appropriate national legislation is in all relevant areas, accompanied by a strong enforcement capacity, is critical in the struggle to balance the environmental protection and the human demands. Protecting our environment and capturing the new economic opportunities are not binary. In an increasingly uncertain and a volatile world that is throwing up the new challenges every day for the businesses, ESG provides a framework for the business for staying resilient by holistically safeguarding the people, the planet, and of course the profits. ESG is the tool that categorizes aspects that were conventionally associated with the sustainability and a corporate responsibility, but have material financial impact on the organization's short and long-term value. Therefore, while companies take this time to evolve the business models and explore the new ways of doing the business or doing things, it is also timely to begin incorporating sustainable practices into their business so that they can seize the global demand for sustainable goods and services. This includes leveraging green finances. I'm sure some of my fellow speakers will speak on this topic, as well as undertaking new processes and solutions to maximize resources efficiently, reduce waste, and reduce our carbon footprints. I would like to say, or end by saying, that ESG is more than just ticking the boxes. All the evidence suggests that ESG is here to stay. I thank you all for kind attention. Thank you so much.
I think thank you, Andy, for sending for sending us this video and really giving a very detailed aspect of linking ESG with different aspects that are available. So I think a very detailed presentation, and thank you for taking time out to send it to us. Since we are a little short of time, we will start with taking a few questions that we received from the audience, and I think we can take about 2 or 3 for our panelists. So I think I'll just begin with 1 or 2 questions here that we've received. One question that we've received is, so I think this question I'll direct it to Aditya on, it says really that ESG regulation implementation in the European Union, where it is mandatory for companies to offer funds to investments and declare ESG ratings. Is there any plan for government to implement such regulations in India? Okay, so I think it's from really, how Europe's really doing this ESG regulations, some light from that aspect. Aditya, I know you're going to be talking more from the UK perspective, but yeah, happy to hear your views around it.
Thanks, Priyanka. So if I got the question correctly, it spoke about what is ESG regulations or investment is being directed due to ESG. So I think I'm going to take a slightly different context to this. I think if you really read the news and if you really follow this ESG trends, which you can see across European Union or probably the North America and Western world, you can see there's a huge push in terms of not only, I think it is not being driven purely by the governments, it's also being driven by the investors actually. Large funds, hedge funds who are actually looking after the pensions of millions of people are actually thinking that it might be a good idea to start investing in more sustainable companies. So I think the challenge which currently everyone is faced is that there is no one leading way to measure ESG impact. Now, everyone has their own way of measuring impact. So there are a variety of consultancy firms or organizations which are trying to understand and capture data in terms of what is the carbon footprint or what are the ESG credentials. I think Ian spoke. I actually was informed by Ian. I mean, in terms of it was quite informative when he spoke that certain industries or companies would be very high on certain aspects of ESG, but will be really bad on certain aspects. Now, who is the judge to say that whether those things are correct or incorrect? Now, that is something which we all, I don't think there is an answer right now, neither in the Western world. I think I would be very surprised to hear if someone has got an absolute handle on this entire criteria situation. But what there is there is an understanding. I think it'll take a few years for people to actually figure out. It will have to be slightly bespoke. You will have to look at every industry probably in isolation. Certain rating agencies will have to come up with certain parameters which are going to be applicable across. And I think it is very difficult for either the industry themselves or the investors. I think this needs, as Puran just spoke, it needs all of them to come together to form a certain framework with which to look at these companies. And probably that is going to drive finance, because the government will have their own pulls and pressures versus an investment fund. So everyone has their own pulls and pressures on the frameworks which they're dealing with. And I think so if I haven't gone too much away from the subject, I think I was being asked whether there's any specific regulations. I think there are regulations, but they are very broad brush right now, and they are not very, very specific in terms of mandating, but they are probably advisory in nature. And I think they will, over a period of time, develop into more mature frameworks which people will follow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Priyanka.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you for this wonderful reply. I note and agree with you. My next question is to Akash. One of the questions that we received from the attendees is really, what can the insurance sector do to address the social needs and becoming torch bearers? And since this is one thing that is also part of your presentation, so I mean, I really wanted to hear your views around, what comes to your mind?
Thank you, Priyanka. Really, really very informative session for me as well, I would say. And Aditya, Puranjay. So insurers at the outset, insurance is basically a safety net. You want to do any business, there's insurance. So it's there. Someone is just backing you up. There's holding your back, that do whatever you want in the premises, and there's insurance. So if you manage risk well, there are incentives as well. So at the end, every risk, I would say most of the risk comes to an insurance company or brokers. So, and this helps in somewhere, I will come to the social part, but as industries, a lot of the practices from one industry has been transferred to another industry, because insurance sector is somewhere a hub for this. And on the social part, From an individual level, I would say that I personally like micro insurance a lot because it has helped a lot of people who are maybe below poverty line, who are in the rural areas. It provides a peace of mind for individuals. The next part is how insurers are adding value. First is that insurance awareness, and especially in India, really needs to go well ahead. And the second is that yes, on the social part, insurers need to do much more. They do a lot of things by they can what you can do. For example, as an individual, how you can contribute. You can contribute through the area of expertise you have. For example, the insurance companies, they have the areas of expertise in product development. They can develop a lot of products. Intermediaries, they can sell those products which are really not seeking just commissions or not seeking this products which are really helpful to the companies. Like crop insurance helps us a lot. Micro insurance helps us a lot. Now you have even title insurance is there. So insurance plays a very important. It's like someone back at your back and yes, take this risk. Do whatever you want to. Set up the plant, set up the industry, set up a business, set up a get a shop. It is insured. You need not worry about the things until unless you practice all the risk management practices. So that's what my point of view would be there on this.
Thank you. So thank you, Akash. I like the way you say that the spreading of insurance, or probably even getting the penetration of insurance going in the industries is itself a large social responsibility, and I think that itself is a very different aspect of looking at insurance. We've been talking very micro from companies, but now this is really a larger responsibility because with more people buying insurance or securing their lives, I think that itself will really be a very important aspect for us as insurers. I think we just have time for one quick last question. So this one's for Puranjay. There are a lot of these ESG funds that are coming in, and a lot of investments. Probably now looking at investing in ESG funds. I just wanted to get your views on. Is this anyway impacting your actual aspect or the capital aspect, or is this really now started forming part of the actual analysis, or is this anyway from the actual aspect, from the capital investment point of view from insurance companies? So it's some light around that aspect from you on the pricing.
Yeah. No, thank you, Priyanka. Really insightful question, really. So I'll answer it by saying that, whether it's coming into pricing, the question is, yeah, not at the moment, but I'll give some more color around that. It's because it's there on the radar. So actual departments or insurance companies have to think about it. I think Lloyd's of London also now, not mandates, as Aditya put it, there's no mandatory thing. It's more advisory in Europe yet, but around their disclosures, it also requires that there's a certain aspect of disclosures which relates to ESG and how the funding takes place and how insurance companies are reflecting that in the way that they set their capital or they do the reserving. But like I said, it's not mandated yet, but there's an advisory form. So yes, companies have to take care of it. The other aspect being, for any pricing or reserving model, it has to be unfortunately auditable, and not unfortunately, but you have to be able to audit it. So you cannot, if it's something inconceivable or it's something which is qualitative but not yet on your books yet, you cannot suddenly put them into your model and then get it past the regulator or get it past the broker. So it has to be auditable, it has to be conceivable, so it cannot be a direct input. And also because it's so varied, again, Aditya touched upon the impact of ESG. There's no like one measure, so you cannot conform then to an industry standard. So it's very varied, so it cannot be a direct input. And the second part is maybe yeah, like right now, any pricing is also governed by how your position is in the market. So if you're running on really thin margins and now you want to price for ESG, you're not going to make your profit targets for the next year. Excuse me. Yeah, you're not going to make your profit targets for next year. So yeah. So yeah, it's your capacity in the market, it's your position in the market, and then whether you have the capacity to take on something new, something big within your capital and pricing, which might change the way you think about implementing ESG into your models. So hopefully that sort of answers the question, not directly though, but that's what I would say. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very helpful. I think with this we're actually almost at the end. We've got we're done with the time that we had for this webinar. In fact, we short 1 minute more than the webinar time that we had. So over to Kabir, and thank you from my side to all the panelists for the lovely inputs that we got from all of you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really an insightful and thought-provoking panel discussion. I'm sure that our audience has got major insights from today's deliberation. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the webinar. But before we close, I request Ms. Ruchika Yadav, Research Associate at NIA and our Alumni Coordinator, to kindly please present the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Kabir. It's actually so overwhelming and heartening to offer a vote of thanks for a panel which is actually our alumni, who were once the students of the academy and are now the panel members for the webinar. This shows how far they have gone, where they have reached, and I feel truly happy and proud to see that. So let me start by thanking our director, Mr. G. Srinivasan, for ideating the entire webinar and being the guiding light for all of us, and also Principal Sir Dr. Sanjay Mali, our alumni, Mr. Praful Soman, who has been instrumental in making this webinar happen. He has been with us throughout and helped us out for fixing the entire thing. Ms. Priyanka Gautama for moderating and channeling the entire panel discussion. Other panel members, Mr. Ayan Dev Saha, who sent his pre-recorded video, Mr. Puranjay Parchure, Mr. Aditya Khanna, and Mr. Akash Singh Khetrapal for participating in the event and putting forward their pertinent point of views on the subject matter. I would also like to thank Dr. Mangesh Patwardhan and Dr. Vaishali Bhambure, who are my co-coordinators for this webinar. We have been working together as a team for this, and it wouldn't have been possible without their continuous support. The IT team members, Mr. Amol Guldagar and Mr. Sharad Jadhav, and their entire team for making it seamlessly and digitally possible. Mr. Jitendra Varadi for coming out with the beautiful leaflet for the webinar, Madhuri ma'am and the entire PGP office for their all-time support. I would also like to thank all our other alumni, the PGDM students and the entire audience who were with us during this webinar and made it so successful today. I'm sure this webinar has also given our students as well as other alumni a roadmap that where they can see themselves in future. Going forward, all of you will have this opportunity to be a part of other such webinars which will follow and which we will be organizing in future. I must also thank Kabir Sukhani, our PGDM student, for comparing the entire event so wonderfully well. Thank you so much, Kabir. And at last, if I've missed upon on anyone's name, so thanks to everyone, all those who have contributed to this webinar directly or indirectly. I hope this was an enriching experience for everyone, and we would definitely come back with more such webinars for all of you. So thank you everyone one more time and wish you all Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year 2022. Kabir, over to you, and would you like to close this formally now?
Sure, ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am. And it has surely been our privilege to host our very own alumni and audience of the event. Not to forget, NIA regularly hosts such knowledge-packed panel discussion and events. Wish you to see you all there. Thank you, everyone. Wish you all a very wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year. Have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.